Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour, and today is Monday, February 10th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. The book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one, where people have been stepped through the worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get the most benefit out of these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your App Store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. And we hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. And if you have any of those to share with us, we'd greatly appreciate you doing so by giving us a call at no, that's not a call. It's email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeanie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyaagain.org. And if we get a comment or a question from you, we will address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred, so you can listen back to the archive for your feedback or input. Or you can download the Needle app, Needl, AI for Live Radio, Radio Tuner. And once you do that, sign in, give me your information, follow the show, and then every time we go live, you'll get a notification on your phone. And then once you do that, you can open up the app to listen, and it gives you access to comments or calling live, tapping the phone icon. And we would greatly appreciate you doing that, because it makes it far easier for us to live into our intention with this work. The intention we have with this work is to be of service, and that's just infinitely easier to do when we know how these things are landing for you. So please give us a call or type a comment in the app and let us know how you would prefer to spend this next hour. We've been doing some reading of books with commentary over the past few years. Whenever there hasn't been a comment or a question from a caller or somebody who needs support or wants support with things like working through a worksheet process or framing out some worksheets that they can do later on their own. And we are always very, very grateful whenever anybody chooses to do that, because it increases the likelihood that other people are going to benefit, and it increases the probability that whatever interaction happens between us gets tagged as a highlight show and put in a special archive place because it's been requested by people. And the vast majority of those over the last 14 plus years have been the result of people just like you calling in with comments or questions. So how can we support you? What is on your mind today? Or how has it been landing for you that we've been reading from the book Of Course in Miracles by Alan Cohen? His books have been a favorite of mine for a lot of years now. And I mentioned that I have two of his that I listen to at least once a year for the past 6 or 8 or 10 years. I've lost track. But those two books are A Course in Miracles Made Easy and The Tao Made Easy. And hopefully, in our reading of these things, with the commentary, it's at the very least stirring up questions for you, because as we talk about in this work, living in the question is far more useful and productive than living from knowing, living from dogma, living from belief. And anything we can do to help you be living in the question, we're thrilled to be able to do that. And since no one has a comment or a question, feel free to do that even if I'm in the middle of reading, or what some might call a monologue. Please feel free to add your 2 cents. In the book Of Course in Miracles, and I believe the subtitle is something like When Love Becomes a Way of Life, Alan Cohen in his 12th chapter says, "Thank God my neuroses are irrelevant." And he writes, "When people ask me, how has A Course in Miracles changed your life? I sometimes feel embarrassed because after 40 years of studying and teaching the Course, I have not fully mastered its lessons. Sometimes I feel like a beginner. I know a few A Course in Miracles teachers who claim that they no longer experience any fear or upset. Part of me envies them, another part wonders if they're telling the truth, and another part respects them for their attainment. Yet, behind ego's meanderings, I harbor an unspeakable appreciation for the gifts A Course in Miracles has brought to my life. How clearly I remember the night I opened my first copy and read the introduction. The words jumped out and electrified me like the Batman TV show exploded with a cartoon pow. And that would happen whenever Batman would punch a villain. Alan writes, I stirred with the scintillating energy, and a deep voice within me spoke, saying, quote, "This is real. This is important. Pay attention. Your soul is being called." Close quotes. He goes on and says, I have studied with many gifted teachers, healers, and channelers, and immersed myself in countless esoteric trainings. And while all of these explorations have delivered rich blessings, scant few touch the overarching wisdom, depth, and unshakable truth delivered through A Course in Miracles. I heard Judy Scutch-Whitson say, quote, "A Course in Miracles is a steep climb," close quotes. It is like an express train that hurdles passengers to the ultimate destination without lots of local stops. When I co-presented a workshop with Neale Donald Walsch, author of the beloved book, the book series Conversations with God, a participant asked him, "Will you help me manifest a car?" Neale answered, "This isn't that kind of workshop. Neither is A Course in Miracles that kind of workshop. There are two kinds of workshops, those that help you get stuff and those that help you get peace. A Course in Miracles is door number 2. A Course in Miracles is not concerned with stuff. It is concerned with healing, and specifically the healing of the mind. It is a steep climb because it makes no compromises, and it calls students to bypass goals that will fade and leave us wanting. It is unbending in its integrity and commitment to a full homecoming. If you would still like to take the local train, you can, but the journey will take longer and you will experience more ups and downs and suffering. There's a far quicker and easier path to healing. He quotes the textbook then that says, "The miracle substitutes for learning that might have taken thousands of years." Alan writes, "Just out of college, I moved into a conservative neighborhood with 4 roommates. Our next-door neighbor, Mrs. Ryan, was not exactly pleased as punch to have 5 young partiers next door. She found all kinds of things to complain about. We resisted, and our relationship grew quite strained. Then one evening I attended a seminar in which the instructor asked the audience to call to mind someone we weren't getting along with. No problem. Mrs. Ryan's face came to me in a flash. The instructor said, "Now take a few moments to drop into your heart and find a place inside you that appreciates that person." That was harder. And for the first time, I was able to feel a sense of acceptance and even this word agape, this broad spectrum of love for my neighbor. And that sure felt better than being upset with her. The next day, while I was working in my garden, Mrs. Ryan approached the fence. And I wondered, what's she going to complain about now? Instead, she said, "I know I haven't been the best neighbor. I'd like to start over and be friends with you guys." I almost dropped my tomatoes. Extending the olive branch was totally out of character with the Mrs. Ryan that I knew. The interaction was a miracle. our relationship went on to be very harmonious. I consider this event a scientific demonstration that when mind changes, so does the outer world. Nothing in our relationship changed, except for that few moments that I found a place in my heart for her. But that was enough. And then he quotes the textbook from the Course in Miracles, quote, "Your part is only to offer him a little willingness to let him remove all fear and hatred and to be forgiven," close quotes. A Course in Miracles has yielded me immense comfort of soul. When I read the text, and when I read the text, I feel that Jesus is holding me in his arms and assuring me, saying, "Don't worry, everything will be all right." Studying because the language is uber esoteric and appeals to the intellect. Yet, I have often read messages and passages that my thinking mind did not understand at all, and yet I felt unspeakably peaceful after reading them. Jesus has imbued the lofty verbiage with a soothing spiritual balm. The text keeps the mind occupied while Christ feeds your soul. Voltaire once said, quote, "The art of medicine consists of amusing the patient while nature cures the disease," close quotes. And so it is my experience with the text from the Course in Miracles. In a rare YouTube recording, Dr. Helen Schuchman comments part 1 is titled, "The ACIM scribe admitted, parentheses, tongue-in-cheek, close parentheses, that the Course appealed to her because she is, quote, a literary snob," close quotes. She acknowledged that many other courses teach the same principles in a much simpler way. The Course speaks to people of intellectual orientation who would not likely be caught in a remote monastery sitting and meditating. The Course author, Jesus, compassionately tosses us a pithy bone to chew on while we subconsciously absorb salvation. Maybe that's part of the teaching. Healing is far more vibrational than intellectual. And now I hearken back to the previous lesson where it said, don't just do something, stand there. Slow down. Take the time to practice being rather than doing constantly, and watch the body heal, watch the soul heal, watch the mind spinning off in the distance while truth affects a healing change. So I'll take a moment to ask if there are any comments or questions, or if anybody wants to comment on the volume of my audio today, since we're experimenting with a new headset and not even sure if it's connected. I might be speaking to the phone without the benefit of the headset. And yet, we will soldier on, as they say. Again, you can call in or type a comment through the Needle app, N-E-D-L. In your app store, it's labeled as AI Tuner for Radio. And we greatly appreciate anyone who's willing to chime in, either with a comment or tap the phone icon on your app to put a hand up so that I can turn on your microphone. And Celinda is saying that the volume is very low. Okay. Is the volume getting any louder? So Cammie says that she can't hear through the app, but she can hear through the link. So thank you for that. It's all part of what we need to do to eventually get the solutions that will make this beneficial for everyone. So, hoping that the volume is passable. And Susan says there's good sound there. Does that mean louder than normal, Susan, or just the usual? So, Alan Cohen, Susan wrote yes. Yes, to an either-or question. So, Course in Miracles has bestowed me with the gift of rapid release. This is Alan Cohen continuing. In olden days, I would spend hours, days, weeks, or in some cases, years stewing over some grievance. And now when upsets arise, I find my way back to clarity far more quickly. He then quotes something from the workbook that says, I could see peace instead of this, close quotes. And Alan writes that that particular quote has served as a blessed ritual accelerator for him, a spiritual accelerator for him. It reminds him that when he chooses upset, it's a choice, and he can choose otherwise if he wishes. He writes, I've also learned to take back my power from people and situations to which I used to attribute my happiness. This process highlights the Course's unusual meaning of forgiveness. Nothing outside me can save me or hurt me. And he quotes the workbook then as saying, you who perceive yourself as weak and frail, with futile hopes and devastated dreams, born but to die, to weep and suffer pain, please hear this. All power is given unto you in earth and heaven. There is nothing you cannot do. So, please understand, choice is critical. Choice is the primary theme woven all the way through the Way of Mastery. And it even says in the very first lesson, you never experience anything other than the effects of your own choices. Alan Cohen goes on and writes, as I observe insane political shenanigans, mass hysteria over diseases going around, and frightening doomsday prophecies, I escape the fray by realizing that none of these illusions have anything to do with reality, nor can they touch my inner peace. My relationship with God does not depend on politics, medicine, the economy, the number of my social media followers, my books' rankings on Amazon, or how many more Christmas lights my neighbors have strung up than I have. Truth is rock solid. It's unassailed by passing appearances. The Course has also helped my relationship with my body. I'm very keen as to when the body looms dominant, and I'm more able to detach from its demands. One day I stepped into the shower and found that my partner had changed the shower head to one with a weaker stream. I began to feel irritated, feeling a victim to her poor choice that adversely affected me. Then I recalled the Course's question, quote, what plans do you make that do not involve the body's comfort or protection or enjoyment in some way? Close quotes. What plans do you make that do not involve the body's comfort or protection or enjoyment in some way. That's from the textbook. And then it asks, which is more important? Instantly, I considered, well, is my relationship more important? Is my relationship with my beloved more important, or the showerhead more important? Eventually, I forgot entirely about the showerhead's water pressure, and I grew free of the pressure of my own grievance. The workbook in the Course in Miracles has a quote that says, "You can escape the body if you choose." And I'm assuming that my interpretation of that is that I can escape by choosing not to focus on or give intense value to the negative thoughts I have about the body and its comfort and its preferences. And I can give more value to my relationship with peace, my relationship with my loved ones, my relationship with my source, etc. Alan goes on and writes, "More and more I recognize that Spirit is the only true source of my providence. I have found endless applications of Workbook Lesson 50, where it says, quote, 'I am sustained by the love of God,' close quotes." Alan writes, "I have lifted up to the light all the sources I once believed sustained me. Relationship partners, doctors, money, the government, vitamins, knowing the right people, and more." He writes, "External source is an oxymoron. While Spirit can work through external channels, these channels deliver our good rather than create it. Spirit does not recognize any external forces. The word, quote, 'outside,' close quotes, is not in the Creator's vocabulary. One mind does not include contradictory parts. There are not two forces. There is one power, the power of creation. What people call evil or the devil is simply the singular power of creation misused. This belief in two powers is a denial of the one power. The force, capital F, force, is already with us. We just need to learn to use it in our favor." I have often tended to be impatient. I don't like standing in lines or waiting for stuff. The Course has helped me live more in the moment and not relegate my good to some future time. I use, quote, "waiting time," close quotes, to look for miracles. While standing in line at the bank, I strike up a conversation with the person in front of me. In a traffic jam, I listen to the inspirational recordings. While waiting for my partner to emerge from a supermarket, I meditate or pray for the folks that are exiting the store. I'm practicing knowing that something good is happening, even while I'm tempted to wait for something better to happen. He quotes the textbook where it says, quote, "Delay does not matter in eternity, but it is tragic in time. Your place is only in eternity, where the Creator himself placed you forever," close quotes. And Alan writes, "Even while I have judged myself as a lagging student of A Course in Miracles, I am not alone. Tamara Morgan, daughter of Judy Scutch Whitson, told me that her mom once formed a regular course study gathering called, quote, 'the Slow Learners Group,' close quotes. I had to laugh, since I consider Judy one who has mastered the Course in Miracles as deftly as anyone who has ever studied it. So if you feel that you deserve an ACIM dunce cap, you're in good company. At the same time, I have gained some solace that I might actually be tapped into the ACIM's truth. The Course tells us that if you give something to someone, their receiving it proves that you had it to give. Since I receive many notes of thanks and miracle reports from readers of my book, titled A Course in Miracles Made Easy, and viewers of my YouTube series on A Course in Miracles, YouTube at Alan Cohen Author, I consider that I must have some understanding of the Course. Even while I walk the path of a human apparently in a body, cloaked with an often erring personality, my true self remains perfectly connected with the divine. I am not waiting until I attain full Buddhahood to let God be God in me. Ram Dass said, quote, "Spiritual masters are just as neurotic as the rest of us, but to them, their neuroses are irrelevant." Close quotes. That's a line worth some consideration. It's the title of this chapter, right? Ram Dass, one of those who was a fabulous favorite teacher for many. Ram Dass said, "Spiritual masters are just as neurotic as the rest of us. Yet to them, their neuroses are irrelevant. So rather than get all bent out of shape about the fact that they're not perfect and they're not finished and they never have another problem, they just flow through the problems and choose to redirect, to choose for love, to choose for peace, to choose to be happy rather than right, etc." Something about that reminds me about, I think it was Stuart Wilde. He wrote some books on spirituality, and in one of them he wrote, "I got so sick and tired of people coming up to me. You know, you write a spiritual book or two, and people come up to you, and they want to tell you how either they know better than you do, or their guru knows better than you do." And he said, "I got so sick and tired of people calling me and telling me, or coming up to me and telling me that their guru was enlightened, that," he said, "I finally took to telling people, that's fine. I'm glad for your guru. Let's schedule a week at his family of origin's house, and at the end of the week, we'll see who's truly enlightened." With the acknowledgement that no one is ever completely done. We are all in this process. As long as we have a body, it's potential for us to have stuff that gets triggered. There's a potential for us to have impatience, anger, irritability. There's the potential for us to do a judgment, an interpretation, and a perception that hides from us the real truth, that the Way of Mastery would call the shimmering radiance of the creative force. So Alan goes on and says, "This brings me to my final celebration of how Course in Miracles has blessed my life. I have compassion for my own humanity. I don't fight or judge my foibles and errors like I once did. I can love myself even with my shtick, and I trust that my godliness is fully intact even when I'm not aware of it. I might add, even when I'm not acting from it." Alan writes, "Ego cares about ego, and spirit cares only about spirit." Then he quotes the textbook from Course in Miracles where it says, quote, "Nothing can reach spirit from the ego, and nothing can reach the ego from spirit." Close quotes. Alan writes, "Looking back on my journey through the illusion of time and space, I hold a handful of gifts that the Creator has supremely precious to help me escape from pain and keep my head on straight amidst an orgy of illusion. The Course in Miracles, yoga, my esteemed mentors, my dear partner, and my dogs top the list. Even while we wander in a weird dream, truth has penetrated fantasy to redeem us. Although we have turned away from love, it will never turn away from us. Christians often cite the Gospel of John 3:16, and it says, quote, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son," ... close quotes. We might state with equal gratitude, quote, "Our God's Son so loved the world, he gave it a Course in Miracles," close quotes. So, there's a reference here that says this Course in Miracles, as the 1,300 and some pages, is divinely inspired. It is pointing us to a solid, deeper truth that never changes. And yet, it, as a book, is just a book. It, as words, is just words. That the truth that it points at can't be spoken, it can't be written, it can't be codified, it can't be captured and owned. And the value that comes from it comes from living in the observation about what it would point you to notice about yourself and your life and your potential and the potential of the beings of brilliance and light that surround you. I forget the context of it, but a number of years ago, 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 years ago, was in this internet show. As we were reading different things and having discussions and doing reality management worksheets and having people call with questions, it dawned on me once that there are no idiots. Well, the fact of the matter is, every one of us of at least an average intelligence occasionally looks back on our lives and things we've done and label it as idiotic, and yet there are no idiots. There are only beings of brilliance and light who are either acting from that brilliance and light, or who have either temporarily forgotten or yet to discover their brilliance. So, making an effort to turn on...
Dr. Tim?
Yes. Susan Biggs.
Oh, good. You can hear me, and I trust I can hear you. Good. I love this reading. I love the Cohen stuff, and I can't stay on long because we've got company coming over, but I'm listening to as much as I can. And all I wanted to say is, having met Helen Schuckman herself and how troubled she was, how fussy she was about certain things, it's as if she, talk about an incarnation. The word of Jesus got right through her despite her own resistance and the persistence of her own troubles. It's the most remarkable contrast that I've ever seen, that you get the Course in Miracles and the person who delivered it still had her own anxieties and regrets and disappointments and depression. And I remember Ken Wapnick, her student who got the books published, actually called and said at one point, Helen is not doing well. Her own ego issues are taking front row seats, and it's hard to see. She's suffering, and we're all suffering watching this, and yet the Course stands. So I just want to add that in, that it's so true that we can have all this stuff going on, and the word can come through. And it's great to know that we still have a choice. I don't think she realized she had a choice, or if she was told she had a choice, she fought that too. And I don't know what that all means, but I just wanted to add that in. I'm going to stay on the show until I have to hang up, but sorry I have to hang up. I hate to. Anyway.
Okay, wonderful. Great addition. And it just brings me back to the the Ram Dass quote that said, spiritual masters are just as neurotic as the rest of us,
No kidding.
right?
Yeah.
There is no one who is not dealing with their own issues. There is no one who has finished the work as long as they're still in a body, and they never get triggered to upset. They never choose an interpretation for life events that resonate upset from the past. All of us have that.
Mm.
So the full Ram Dass quote is, spiritual masters are just as neurotic as the rest of us. The difference is, to them, their neuroses have become irrelevant. Right? They don't defend them. They don't try to hide them. They don't blame them on other people. And it is the only difference between, leads me back to one of the things that came to me years ago, to say, the only significant difference between you and anybody who's ever lived or ever will live is the degree to which you can live in the moment, in the awareness that we are all the same.
Mm.
Think about that.
Mm.
What's the most significant difference between you and anybody else? Here's doublespeak.
Mm.
Your ability to live in the realization that we're all the same is the
Mm-hmm.
only difference.
Mm. That's great.
So I will let you go so you can get ready for whatever you're doing with dealing with life and friends. Thank you for the call.
All right. Thanks for being on the radio show and doing. Thanks a lot, Dr. Tim. I'll just hang up and keep listening.
Okay. So I had a comment that I flipped over and saw. Cami says, someone asked if I got the link. I did. I'm listening through the link and I can hear it. I can't hear from Needle for clarification through the Needle app. And so Linda says that Susan comes in loud and clear, and my volume is still very soft. So thank you for that clarification, Celinda. And we have plenty of time for comments or questions. Susan is one who spoke directly to the reading. And if anybody else has any comments about Alan Cohen, The Course in Miracles, The Way of Mastery, the overlap, we do have some time. The ending of this lesson or chapter in the Course in Miracles, the newest book by Alan Cohen, in this chapter he has 6 miraculous insights at the end of the chapter. And these read the question, how has practicing A Course in Miracles helped your life? Next, if you are not a Course in Miracles student, what spiritual practice has helped your life, and how? Third, what miraculous events have occurred in your life after you changed your thoughts? Fourth, if you knew that there is nothing you cannot do, what is it you would attempt? Fifth, for what negative quirks, habits, or neuroses do you judge yourself? And lastly, number 6, what if these objects of your judgments were quite small and unimportant relative to your overall spiritual mission in your life? Great questions, the kinds of things I ask people on a regular basis. I was literally having a conversation with a patient in the hour just leading up to this internet show time today, and this is a person that I view as one of the most intelligent, creative, productive, successful, determined, persistent. Go ahead, throw in some other positive adjectives there. People I've ever met and worked with. And yet this is a person who views herself as damaged or broken or sick or weak, or simply because of whatever recent situation is in front of her that she can't just wave her hand and make it go away. But she's paying attention to life. She's succeeding in life at many levels. She's creating a loving, respectful home environment. The list goes on for all these things that she's doing that I would label as a tremendous success, and yet her situation has her judging it as all but failure, or failure at many levels. So we have time for a comment or question. We've probably got about 10 minutes left before I will close the show out and then leave time for Michael and Jeanie to open up the app, make a few changes, and get on for themselves. I will continue to work on the technical side of things to see if my volume can be improved. Julia, you're on the air.
Hi, Dr. Tim. Yeah, I just wanted to give feedback about the volume also, that it was really loud with Susan, and I'm having a hard time hearing you today. Even when she was not on mute and not talking, I could hear her background like I heard a plane flying by. It was really picking up her sound. And then also I wanted to comment about the comment that Ram Dass made, and an experience I had yesterday. I was in a book club group on a Zoom with a couple other women, of Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself book by Dr. Dispenza. And there's one chapter called Survival versus Creation. And it talks a lot about, what that means. But this one of the women in the class was saying, I know I'm in creation now because my life is the same, but I'm not worried about things. I still have the same problems. I still have the same issues. Everything is the same, but I'm at peace, and I'm enjoying my life instead of like being stressed out about it all the time. So I really liked that Ram Dass comment a lot. So thank you for reading. I'm really enjoying listening to Alan Cohen's book also.
All right. Well, thank you for that comment on many levels. As you said it, I flashed back to a time when I was in graduate school in my third year, and a friend of mine and I were sitting at lunch, and we were comparing notes about the fact that we'd each been in analysis, Jungian analysis, with different analysts for just over a year. And we were talking about exactly what your friend just said. All the same things are happening in my life. We were in graduate school. The stress level was through the roof. I was working 3 and 4 jobs at a time. She was raising teenagers and going to graduate school and working as a professor at a community college. Stress through the roof. And yet, when we reached the point where we thought, it's hard to put words on how things are different. So, is it worth it? Would we consider stopping? And both of us said emphatically, no, we would not stop. Because even though everything on the outside in our lives was the same, our internal experience was tremendously improved through that process of introspection and personal work and the shadow work of Jung, etc. So thanks for the call. Thanks for the input. It's lovely to hear
Mm-hmm.
from you.
Yep.
Anything else for you before we mute you or hang up? Okay. So it's a quandary about why my volume is so low, even though I have done this process to try and get a new headset specifically to make it louder. Julie, you put your hand up again?
Yes. Because I was talking, I was trying to respond to you, but you couldn't hear me. I don't know what happened. I think I tried to mute myself so that people wouldn't have to hear my background noise. Maybe that's up at the top. I see my avatar, and on the left is a blue microphone, and then on the right is a red telephone icon, and I was tapping that blue one, thinking it would mute me, but it shifted, it made something change in our call, but I'm not sure what. But now I'm seeing also these icons above that says call in, comment, send, hey, or mute, and maybe I'll try that mute button next time. But I really loved what you said about you and your colleague, and I think that kind of training would be so good for everybody that is getting masters or entering any kind of health, any high stress job, right? Because it's like you guys learned how to regulate your nervous systems and be at peace, even though life was so challenging. And so I think that was really great comment. And then I also wanted to ask, where do I find the archives of this show?
So the easiest thing to do is to go to your podcast platform. These days, Apple and Google and Spotify are now carrying, and they're updating. For a month and a half or more, they weren't getting updated. But now if you go to your podcast source, which one you like, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or dozens of others, Google, etc., and look for Mindshifters Radio, and these are updated not as quickly as it used to be with Blog Talk, but within the day, within a half a day or a day. And so, last Friday's show is up there, and then on top of that, Jeanie is working with putting the audio files on YouTube as an archive source. So if you go to the whyagain.org and Michael and Jeanie's YouTube channel from their whyagain.org website, then you'll find a whole bunch of shows that have been archived, and they're adding more. They're trying to get all 14 years put up there eventually.
Okay, great. Good to know, because I thought maybe Needle would have them, but
Needle is only for the broadcast.
okay.
And for the archive, it's either go to your app store.
It's not on the Why Again app. I mean, not the Why Again, but
on the whyagain.org website, those links are all still going to Blog Talk Radio, and Blog Talk Radio is now defunct.
yeah.
So
Okay.
eventually, Jeanie hopes to have that remedied so you can go to their website and click links to go to the YouTube archives, etc. But right now, either go to YouTube and the YouTube channel that Michael and Jeanie have, or go to your favorite podcast program app for your phone and type in Mindshifters Radio, and that's the best way to get the archives in the audio.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome and deserving. Thank you for the call.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
You too. So, I will look forward to the replay and checking out the audio and how soft it was and figuring out an option that will allow me to be heard more clearly. In the meantime, I remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff that we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Please come back for the second hour with Michael and Jeanie by restarting your app when you get that notification, and have a wonderful day.